Hello there. A very good morning from the capital, Jakarta, Indonesia. Coming to you live here on TVR World. This is special reports for the next couple of hours. We'll bring you the coverage of the state visits of the President of the Republic of Peru here in Jakarta, Indonesia. President Dina Boluarte is set to be meeting with the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto, at the Presidential Palace of Jakarta. We'll bring you live visuals from the palace as well as conversations here in the studio. We are your host, Rahmat Idris.
And I'm Valerina Daniel, and let's start our special report today. President Prabowo is scheduled to receive this morning visiting President of Peru, Dina Boluarte, and her entourage at Merdeka Palace, Jakarta. Here are the bilateral relations between Indonesia and Peru. Let's have a look.
President of Peru, Dina Boluarte, will hold a bilateral meeting with President Prabowo Subianto to discuss potential cooperation both in economy, cultural fields, and international relations. Speaking to journalists in Jakarta on Tuesday, Foreign Minister Sugiono said the visit of Peruvian President is also intended to mark the 50th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between the Latin American nation and Southeast Asian country. President Boluarte arrived in Jakarta on Saturday following her 4-day trip to Japan. The Peruvian leader traveled to Indonesia in response to an invitation from President Prabowo, who visited the Latin American country during the summit of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, in November 2024. During the November visit, Prabowo and Boluarte held a bilateral meeting to discuss strategies to strengthen bilateral cooperation in areas ranging from a comprehensive economic partnership agreement to combating drugs. The two leaders also witnessed the signing of a bilateral agreement on a visa-free arrangement for holders of diplomatic and service passports by Foreign Minister Sugiono and Peruvian Foreign Minister Elmer Schialer Salcedo. On the same occasion, President Prabowo was awarded the Grand Collar of the Order of the Sun of Peru by President Boluarte. The honor is given to Peruvian or foreign nationals who have made significant contributions in fields such as politics, arts, culture, and others. Meanwhile, Trade Minister Budi Santoso said Indonesian and Peruvian leaders will sign their Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA. The CEPA agreement is expected to further expand the two countries' economic cooperation, especially in trade and investment. With the Peru-CEPA agreement, Indonesia can use the country as a gateway to enter the Latin American market. In addition to the CEPA with Peru, Indonesia also expects the signing of the CEPA with Canada and the Free Trade Agreement with Eurasia by the end of this year. Furthermore, the CEPA with the European Union is also targeted for signing in September. Chairman of Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Anindya Bakri, warmly welcomes the Peruvian president visit, which he described it as a historic moment because it is the first visit of the president of Peru to Indonesia. In his remarks during a meeting with Peruvian ambassador to Indonesia, Luis Suboyama, recently, Anindya said Peru, as a member of APEC and the Pacific Alliance, can become a gateway for Indonesia and other ASEAN members to enter the South American market. On the other side, Indonesia can be also used by Peru as a gateway to market its products to other countries in Southeast Asia. The Latin American country is Indonesia's 45th largest export destination in the non-oil and gas sector. In 2023, total trade between the two countries reached $444.3 million, in which Indonesia enjoyed a trade surplus of $290.4 million. Indonesia's main exports to Peru included cars and other motorized vehicles, biodiesel and its mixtures, textile footwear, leather footwear, and an uncoated paper and cardboard. Meanwhile, Indonesia's main imports from Peru include cocoa beans, fresh or dried grapes, mineral or chemical phosphate fertilizers, unbrought zinc, and metal slag.
Well, there you have it, a quick look into the diplomatic and bilateral ties between Indonesia and Peru. And we are going to deep dive and analyze even deeper into these relations as we're joined by our guest for this program. She is the Deputy Executive Director for Research of CSI, Safia Muhibat. Fifi, always a pleasure to have you in our studio. Thank you very much for making the time.
Thank you for having me here.
50 years into the relations, as said by a short package there of Indonesia and Peru, which is, in a lot of our opinions, relatively young as compared to other nations out there, which we are over 70, if not 75, in relations with. What does it say about this particular spans of periods that we've shared in terms of ties with Peru?
I mean, it's always interesting, trying to analyze bilateral relations with a country that is geographically so far away, like Peru. Yeah. And Peru itself, I think it holds significant influence in Latin America. It has a very strong economy. It has very rich in terms of natural resources, and it always promotes strong strategic partnerships with a lot of countries. Yeah. So that's why, as a regional player in Latin America, I think Peru is quite influential. Yeah. So and I think it is the best interest of countries, even though it's far away, for Indonesia to always have a good relations, because it is one of the entry points into getting closer cooperation with South America.
Okay, well, we know that Peru is not the biggest country in South America, but there's Brazil. So how significant is this visit, do you think?
It is significant. I mean, Indonesia has always talked about diversifying our strategic partnerships with countries. And always South America and Africa are the two regions that are mostly talked about when we want to open up either new markets or new types of strategic partnerships with countries. So, and we always need entry points into getting of this, any of these regions, right? So Brazil, of course, is the biggest economy there is in South America. But Peru, I think, is, as I said, has a very strong economy, and it's very rich in terms of natural resources. So, and it has significant influence in Latin America. So, of course, it's a great entry point into getting into South America.
Right. Well, a lot of important things there to highlight. First, you said the geographical challenges of Indonesia and Peru, and also to note the fact that we need to have that access of markets wherever the country, the entry point is, whether it's the biggest one in Brazil or in Peru, and the diversifications of sources of relations, as you said, Fifi. But at this point in time, we are looking at the possibility of having these countries coming in to Indonesia and sort of expand and sort of invite the FDI, if that's even possible. If Peru can be one of those, we need as much as we can from all these potential resources. But we also need to address the fact that this is indeed an invite back on behalf of our President Indonesia from the November 2024 visits during the leaders' informal discussions of APEC. And in this particular point in time, 6 months, or rather 7 after that particular meeting in Lima, Peru, we are looking at it was also mentioned that the upcoming signing of CEPA, we have the cooperations of economic partnerships with a lot of different countries, and now Peru is right here on the table. How do you think significant it is for us to have this CEPA signed, especially one country representing the Southern Hemisphere?
I mean, I think it's a very interesting fact that so far, until now, we only have one CEPA with a Latin American country, which is Chile. So should this...
We don't have one with Brazil
We don't have one with Brazil.
Okay.
We don't have one with Brazil. Yeah. So should this one be signed later on today, then it would be the second. And I think it would be very important if we are serious in engaging with Latin American countries, if we are serious about opening markets there, then definitely it is a good sign. And we also need to take into account, I mean, our trade with Peru is of course not as high as our trade with, I don't know, other countries like China, for example.
But it's
have
worth
always,
exploring
yeah,
anyway.
but we have always had surplus in terms of trade.
Okay.
So that is worth noting, I think, and if it's something that we can build further into the future, and I think that's high potential there.
Right.
Okay. So as you said before, that this particular country is strong in South America compared to other countries. But do you think if we have this CEPA signed today, this will assure, guarantee the future trade relations between the two countries will increase?
Sure, of course there's no guarantee. And to be honest, I haven't had a chance to look into exactly what's in the CEPA. I would predict a reduction of tariff and all. And then from then on, you need to also look one by one into the commodities that we trade with Peru and how significant the reduction of tariff would be. But I think in terms of sometimes, in a lot of cases, the signing of agreements like CEPA has a very strong weight in terms of being a symbol, a gesture that we seek to further our relations with certain countries. And then, looking at our other CEPA, our EU CEPA, for example, has dragged on for years and years, and it gives a negative image in terms of how serious it is for the two sides to build relations. So I think for the first few years, it holds more of a symbolic weight to it. But then from then on, we need to look in each and every one of the clausel in terms of inside the CEPA itself to know for sure what sort of benefits we will get from it.
Because it's CEPA, it's not just an economic partnership, but it's comprehensive economic partnership, meaning that it goes beyond what we think, just trades and exchanges of goods in between the two countries. Just to highlight the fact that this year alone, we've signed a couple of very notable CEPAs with other parts of the world. In July, for example, with the European Union, something that you said just now that we've been championing for many different years, and also with the United Arab Emirates. So looking back in retrospect to all of these CEPAs that we've signed, we have one with Australia, as we have with India, we have with China a while back. So what sort of benefits have Indonesia gained from all of these CEPAs that we can sort of reflect into what's going to the table today with Peru?
Well, immediate benefit would be, of course, reduction of tariff. But then again, that
is a hot button issue right there.
Yeah, exactly. But then again, that would for that to have a real significance would be in terms of the follow-up from there. How serious we are in terms of our trade with these countries, whether or not we can actually deliver the goods that we want to trade.
All right. So we will talk more about this topic, particularly later after we have this commercial break. So please stay tuned on our special report. Hello and welcome back to our special report on Peru President's state visit to Indonesia, and we are going to continue our dialogue with our special guest today, Mbak Safia Muhibat, or Mbak Fifi, a Deputy Executive Director of Research from CSIS. Mbak Fifi, let's continue our discussion. We were left talking about the CEPA agreement. Now, based on our information, during the November meeting, the Peruvian president also talked about combating drugs topic with President Prabowo. Do you think this is also going to be one of the topics that's going to be discussed today during the meeting?
I think so. I mean, I'm not familiar with the exact agenda of the meeting today, but the counter-narcotics cooperation, I think, is one of the highlights of the November 2024 meeting in Lima. And it's something that has been quite strikingly interesting, at least for me, for us looking at the issue, because it's not very common, I think, for countries in South America to have counter-narcotics cooperation with, with countries like, for example, in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So I think this one is quite a step further, and I think Peru is one of the countries that's very open about engaging with this type of cooperation, which I think is good, because it is a big concern for Indonesia as well.
Maybe not so much about the drug trafficking due to the geographical distance that we have with Peru, but more on the fact that we need to eradicate drug abuse. We have our own challenges, they have their own in South America, and we have our own in Asia, and in particular in our country, that we sort of can learn from the countries that have dealt with such issues for such a long time.
But I do think that the drug trafficking is a big issue as well, and I think that is probably one of the more important issues that was discussed in this cooperation, because if you look at the latest, well, I shouldn't call it incident, but the latest drug trafficking case that was caught by our authorities is actually coming in from Brazil, a Brazil national.
Goodness, all the distance to get to Asia.
Exactly. It's I'm not sure where the drug comes from, but the person that was detained for this issue was actually a Brazilian national. So it means that there is a serious issues, between the two regions that actually require stronger cooperation on this particular matter.
Yeah. Because it's unusual to have this kind of agreement between the two presidents of countries. Usually they only talk about economic or diplomatic relations, but now it's
very specific.
Very specific.
That's what I found personally, something that's very strikingly interesting from the November 2024 meeting.
Yeah. And on that note also, Fifi, some of the points that are going to be listed in the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement today is the fact that we need to establish we both share, borders with Pacific oceans, meaning that we are in the Pacific regions and thus a part of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperations, APEC. Before we go into that, let's stick to the fact that there is a stipulations of keeping stability and peace in the Pacific regions that Indonesia and Peru need to agree upon. Your thoughts on this?
No, absolutely. I mean, we talked about how far geographically the two countries are. So in terms of bilateral relations, that's actually very limited when we compare to our relations with our immediate neighbors, of course. But Indonesia and Peru, interestingly, have been engaging closer or a lot more in terms of our multilateral framework. So APEC definitely is one platform where the two countries have met very regularly. And we'll meet again soon, I think in end of October in Korea for the APEC
Summit. This year is taking place in South Korea.
Yes, so I do think that this is one of the platforms where the two countries are very serious about. Both countries being, we can call them both middle power countries, so they view multilateral frameworks as something very important to support their foreign policies.
Yeah, because we also know that today's visit is part of the Asia's visit by the presidents of Peru. So do you think that why she choose Indonesia as one of the the destination of the visit is because she realized that maybe we can play a bigger role in the region?
That is one. I do think that's one. With the current situation with the tariffs coming from the U.S., everybody's looking for another friend, right? Everybody's looking for another partner. So definitely, I think looking at it from South America, Asia in general, and Southeast Asia more specifically, is definitely a partner that they seek to engage more. A second factor, I do think that a counter visit is always something that is seen very courteous, once President Prabowo was there in November 2024, we saw how he got this recognition, the Medal of Honor, and also I do think that a counter visit is something that has been in the agenda for quite some time.
It was actually revealed to the public that there is this statement coming in from our president towards President Dina Boluarte saying that we are inviting you officially to come to our country. So then also SIPA came into the picture And then the minister, during that time, just 1 month into the office, saying that it's going to take at least 6 months for the draft of agreements to be completed. And now here we are, and hopefully something can be unveiled to the public very, very soon as to the details for all of these points that have been conveyed to the public, whether or not they make it to the final list of agreements. That is something else to look forward to. But one point that was also unveiled in the November meeting was the exchange of art and culture between Indonesia and Peru. I mean, you mentioned that, we said that times and again. We are so far away from each other.
Yeah.
But then a lot of different elements of cultures that we share. From this particular point of view alone, FIFA, what more can we share about ways to explore this avenue of cooperation? Probably not in your lane of expertise, but something that you can share with us.
I do think, you know, these are the kinds of things, exactly because geographically we are so far away, there's a lot to be learned, right?
Yeah.
When we talked about, we're looking at Peru so far away, usually what we think about is tourism, of course, Machu Picchu in Peru.
That is always,
it's in everyone's bucket list, right? Yeah. So for them, it's probably going to Southeast Asia, going to Bali, for example. Yeah, so it's always that. But in terms of art, definitely it's a sector that is not been thoroughly viewed as something that can be worked on together.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, now so let's go back to the SIPA then. Something that you can talk about. Okay, so we know that one of the things that is achieved during the negotiations in November is, just like you said, like a reduce on tariff. So how significant is this topic during the SIPA agreement today? I mean, do you think it's going to be like a free tariff or just like a certain lower tariff that they're going to be agreed on?
If we look at experiences in other SIPA, of course it differs from one to the other. And even with one country, of course, how low the tariff can go depends on what commodities it is. We really can't make that sort of prediction. But again, if we look at that, historically, our trade with Peru, Indonesia has always had the surplus.
Yeah.
So any reduction of tariff, of course, be an incentive for us to trade even more with a country with which we have surplus trade, and that can only mean that something is going to improve in the future.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
Yeah, and then it's even more important at this point in time, the conversations around tariff, especially with the trade wars and all these ongoing tariff negotiations, and it's already been implemented starting the 1st of August 2025. And we are looking at live pictures now from the presidential palace of Jakarta, Indonesia, where moments from now we expect the official welcoming ceremony for the president of Peru, Dina Boluarte, will take place. The entourage is now approaching the main venue of the welcoming ceremony. And I'd like to get your thoughts on still concerning tariffs too. We are battling and negotiating with what's coming in from the US essentially. And you said we need to make as many friends as we can. We need to cooperate with as many countries as we can to sort of make our way around this inflamed war of tariffs. How much of our cooperations with Peru at this point in time, in your opinion, Fifi, will sort of dampen down the repercussions that we have with tariffs coming in, the 19% that we need to deal with from the US?
Sure. I mean, only one with Peru would, of course, not be as significant as we would like it to be.
But that's a gateway.
Exactly, exactly. So I think the challenge is to open up or diversify as much as we can in terms of our partners, especially trade partners. So that that is one way that we can reduce the negative impact of the tariff from the U.S. But then again, that's of course easier said than done. Again, opening up these new markets, getting new partnerships is something that needs to be continued by the government.
Okay. Which sector do you think that we should more focus on? I mean, like what kind or what subject or what area that we need to focus on in the SIPA?
Well, again, I'm not familiar with what exactly is in the SEPA, but what I've read is that, so of course, we talked about commodities that we've been trading with Peru for quite some time, so those are definitely on the list. But I think one issue, one sector that has recently been discussed is also on the service sector, which is quite interesting. And I think tourism is, of course, one of the sectors that has been discussed quite a lot.
Right.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
probably one of the new things
Yeah.
because they already agreed on free visa, I think, yeah, in
Free
November
visa so far only for service and diplomatic passports, I think, not yet for
for the whole
Right.
tourism.
us, for the layman.
One of our efforts to become a stronger passports owner of our country, hopefully Peru coming into the list. Brazil is already a free visa
Yes.
for a lot of us Indonesian, but we need to take into account the fact that for the tourism perspective, that the travel alone, we've both experienced, it takes a little 40 hours from a country
Yes.
back and forth. So that's going to be something that's going to play into the equation as well. One thing for sure is the fact that we are welcoming, I don't know for any one of you guys, but for me personally, we are welcoming an international, overseas, friendly countries female president into Indonesia. And we have two female figures here at our panel. I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Mbak Fifi. How enlightening is it to have some top figures, top leaders coming in, taking the office, and govern?
Of course, it's always refreshing, to see female leaders. Although in Latin America, it's not so uncommon because we've seen quite a number of female leaders coming from that region. So, but of course, you know, in the midst of the current geopolitics with very strong male leaders, it's of course always welcoming to see a female president.
Right. Let's look at the live pictures again coming in from the presidential palace of Indonesia as we are looking at the official car of President of Peru, Dina Boluarte, approaching the presidential palace, preceded by the horse of cavalry there, and also troops standing by for the welcoming ceremonies about to kick in. And there you have it, the visuals of the President of Peru, Dina Boluarte, exiting the car and handshaking very warmly indeed with President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto.
Yeah, usually after this, the agenda will be the welcoming ceremony where they're going to have a lot of the troops greeting the presidents, and also they're going to play the national anthem from both countries.
Fifi, if we look very quickly at the attire chosen by presidents of Peru, a bright silky green, if I may say there, would that something that reflects the agreement that Prabowo has been trying to push in from November 24 is that we need to take a stance for the climate change, a greener planet. But before we go into that, let's just join in the official welcoming ceremony of the president of Peru, Dina Boluarte. Let's join in.
Hormat Sandana! Rock! Sonnado! Rock! Lapor upacara penyambutan siap dimulai. Selanjutnya pasukan siap diperiksa. Upacara penyambutan telah dilaksanakan. Laporan selesai. Kembali ke tempat.
Well, there you have it. The official welcoming ceremony of the presidents of Peru, Dina Boluarte, has just concluded, and the president is now in the palace alongside Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto, about to go into the tete-a-tete meeting, as per the traditions, could be held behind closed doors.
And usually this is the place where they're going to do the final negotiations in order to achieve the agreement that they're going to announce later on today, including the SIPA, of course, because it is informed that the SIPA will be signed today between the two countries. So let's go back to our dialogue with Mbak Fifi. You know, just like we talked about earlier, the SIPA agreement will be something that everyone is going to be looking for today. So do you think during this tete-a-tete will, something new will come up?
Usually no, yeah. The core of these negotiations would be done by the highest with the ministerial level. So I think this is more on the formalities of what has been previously discussed and agreed upon. So I hardly think that they would go into details about what should be in the SEPA.
Because the statement has been made back in November 2024 by Indonesian Trade Minister Budi Santoso that it was going to take 6 months at least for the draft to be finalized. It means that in the time span of that November to August this year, they have been going back and forth, finalizing all the small details. Some of the biggest points have been unveiled, but the biggest things to be agreed upon is yet to be revealed later on after the press conference, we hope. And truth of the matter is that the Minister of Trade of Indonesia, Budi Santoso himself, welcomed the arrival at Soekarno-Hatta Airport of President Boluarte, meaning that there is a firm stance of Indonesia sort of solidifying economic agreements. Our trade minister was there to welcome in person. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely. So that shows that, in terms of, well, we can say it's limited bilateral relations so far.
Usually it's Sugiono, our foreign minister, but no, it's not this time.
So yeah, that could be seen as a gesture that is one of the top issue in the bilateral relations. So I don't think there is anything wrong with that. I mean, if we're sure that the trade is definitely the top priority, then it should be the way to go.
Because we both are mining countries. Just for lack of a better words to express that, the veins of similarities that we share with Peru. We have our own rare earths, rare minerals, which is very much sought upon by a lot of different countries out there, especially the U.S. We have our nickel, we have our gold. Back in Peru, they have their copper, also gold and silver. So in terms of holding on to our rare minerals that is pretty much sought after by all of the other nations, we need to learn from each other, don't you think, Fifi?
Definitely, definitely. As I said earlier, Peru's identity is a strong economy and it's very rich in natural resources. So definitely gold, silver, copper are some of their main commodities in terms of their export. I don't think it's about the learning from each other, but definitely it's our relations with Peru, especially with the SEPA, is definitely expanded market access to some of our exports, and not only for our products, but I think the markets in Peru is also for our services as well. As we talked about, service sector is one of the things that would be discussed in SEPA, and I think that's something that a new sector to be discussed between the two countries.
All right, so okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Based on our information, Peru is Indonesia's 45th largest export destination in the non-oil and gas sector. So 45th.
Okay.
How significant is this number?
That's an interesting part. But like I said, that's an interesting number. It means that, as we have predicted, because of the geographical limitations, of course, we won't be having strong relations with a country as compared to our relations with our immediate neighbors and our traditional markets. But I think this is exactly the way going forward. If we are certain about our need to diversify markets, to expand market access. Of course, we need to tap into these countries where our relations is not so high in terms of number, and that is that actually gives opportunity for us to work on this limitations.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say that today's meeting is probably one of the, Indonesia's strategy in order to expand that market, in order to probably to face this new tariff war, especially from the U.S. So, do you think, this tariff war will play a significant influence in, reaching, just like maybe the level of the tariff that will be agreed later on between the two
Definitely.
countries?
I mean, the tariff from the U.S., I mean, we can say so much about it, but I think one of the repercussions of it is that countries are scrambling to diversify partners, to find new markets and so on. And that gives room for closer cooperations with, among countries like Indonesia and Peru, of course. I mean, previously with the geographical limitations, it might not be seen as something that is beneficial. But with the current condition, definitely, not only with Peru, but I think with a lot of other countries as well.
So we will probably going to be seeing more this kind of negotiations with, maybe not so high level influence of countries between Indonesia.
Sure.
And
We might actually see completions of SEPA quicker than previously predicted, right? I like to use the example of our SEPA with EU, dragging on for years and years and years, and suddenly this year there's a breakthrough. So, which means that countries realizing that you need to focus on this, agreements in terms of opening up markets, new partners, and so on, to respond to the current challenges.
Right.
Okay.
Well, in the case of our CEPA with the European Union, it represents a little over 27 countries within the European Union. So I believe the fact that it needs only 6-7 months for our CEPA with Peru to just one country to finally get into the table to this. That's quite an achievement of its own, right, Fifi? And I'd like to go back to the fact again, some of our agreements with the U.S. when it comes to the 19% that is imposed on Indonesia per that tariff coming for our products to the U.S. is that it comes to the fact that Donald Trump has said that we have a hold on and rather we have access to the Indonesia's rare earths, rare minerals of our country. And he said that a lot about all these other nations that he's trying to grasp upon and sort of assert influence using the tariff. So when it comes to holding on, I said that earlier, to our precious earth minerals, something that Peru is probably also very hard trying to get their hands on. Do you think that moving forwards, President Prabowo and President Boluwarto will sort of come to an understanding of ways to facing the U.S. and their ways of grasping hold to all of these rare earth minerals throughout the globe?
Sure. I don't think that the two of them would be sort of like ganging up against the U.S.
Trump. Okay.
But I do think that both leaders would find it that it is very important for them to find ways to respond to the current challenges. So not only due to the tariff from the U.S., but also the whole geopolitical conditions with the U.S.-China competition, competition for critical minerals, as you said. So I think it's in their interest to find ways to respond to these overall challenges.
Yeah. Because I'd like to take into account some of the things that have been unveiled by President Prabowo Subianto during his participation for the informal leaders discussions of APEC back in November 2024, things that he deemed necessary for all these nations to take part into. One, for example, is our collective efforts towards the net zero emissions, at least for Indonesia by 2060s. SDGs is around the corner in merely 5 years, but it said that sustainability is a grave issue right now that we need to address. And he mentioned that resilience, clean energy, all in efforts to reach all these other securities that he's been campaigning since the very beginning of his presidency here in Indonesia for the food security, energy security. Peru can become a potential partner here.
Interestingly, Peru is is very serious in terms of sustainable finance.
Yeah.
So very specific. So they are actually a leader in Latin American's sustainable financing system. They have introduced for quite some time green bonds, and they develop a what do you call that? A national green finance taxonomy. So that's to say. So they are very serious about this. And although I think Indonesia and Peru looks at the issue with sort of like a little bit difference. For Indonesia, it's more on the sort of like the immediate environmental impact on the country from climate change and so on. And they focus a lot, while Peru focuses a lot on this green financing. But
Carbon trading.
Exactly,
for
exactly.
A country, for example,
so
yeah.
I do think that at the end result, I think the end ambition is the same thing. So there is plenty of room for cooperation for both countries.
I mean, the call for clean energy has been there for quite a while. And this year, at the end of this year, Brazil is hosting the biggest climate yearly, the annual climate conference of COP. It will be COP30 in Belém, Brazil this year. And there's been a lot of attentions being given by the countries in the Southern Hemisphere. In Indonesia, for example, and also Peru in South America, because their forests are being decimated as we speak right now. And they need to pay attention to all of these resources that are gradually diminishing, and we are experiencing the same here in a country where we are expected to just flip our hands, close our coal mines, which is a far-fetched effort, if we may say. I think this is something that they'd like to pursue together.
Definitely. I mean, it's just interesting that you mentioned the COP later on this year in Belém in Brazil. That specific place was chosen because
it's a non-oil producing country this time after Azerbaijan and Dubai. So
but
it's going to be a
Belém
difference.
itself is actually the entryway towards Amazon. I only find out very recently
Come
because
and visit
people
our forest.
exactly.
Go see anacondas.
So it's very symbolic, and it really puts a lot of weight in terms of the benefits of having rainforests and the importance of countries like Brazil and Indonesia to maintain our forest. Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you think it's also going to be part of the SIPA, like maybe the carbon trading scheme and everything? I
do think that is because Peru is very focused on that. So I won't be surprised if it is. But I can't really make predictions in terms of the actual wordings or the actual agreement would be on this green financing. But Peru is definitely it's a leader in Latin America on this issue.
Okay. It's interesting to know because, well, we also focusing on transition towards renewable energy, right, with Indonesia. So during this SIPA agreement, do you think there's also going to be like agreement in order to, fulfill these goals for Indonesia?
I'm not too sure. And to be honest with you, like I said, even though this issue is important for the two countries, maybe I don't have much expertise on this, but I can't really see for the time being what sort of real cooperation that can be implemented immediately for the two countries to work together on renewable energy. Yes, both Indonesia and Peru are individually working on it, but maybe another expert can give more predictions in terms of what can actually the two countries can work together on this particular issue.
Because the transitions to a cleaner energy is also something that Indonesia made into one of our important pillars for our G20 presidency back in 2022, something that we've been championing, and President Prabowo Subianto at every single international deliberations that he took part in. This is something that also always puts on the tables the ability of these countries to stand on equal footing when it comes to technology sharings, the efforts. I mean, we shouldn't just be one side to be demanded upon when all of these modern and developed nations are not doing one bit. They give money and stuff. There's a lot of prerequisites that comes with the money to sort of make this transformation.
Yeah, but this transitioning towards renewable energy also mentioned during the APEC in 2024 and G20 meeting as well in 2024.
Carried forward each and every year.
So maybe they are going to...
Let's hope so.
All right. So I said this earlier at the beginning of our conversations, Vivi, that this is its 50th year, 2025. We started in 1975. A lot of it other countries. It's over 70 years of bilateral relations. Looking back into the course of history, why was that?
Oh, to be honest with you, I don't know. But Peru has, even though our relations draws back only, quote unquote, only 50 years,
Yeah.
but they've been a close partner in.
Not that it's a small number,
No,
yeah?
they've been actually an important partner in the non-alignment movement.
I see.
So even though formally bilateral relations is 50 years, but I do think that relations, if you see the previous in terms of history, could be going way
So it's
longer
formal
than that.
life in 1975,
Exactly.
but it goes beyond that.
Exactly.
All right, okay. We have more exciting reports coming in and conversations here in the studio, and of course live pictures from Merdeka Palace as we expect the outcomes from the tete-a-tete meeting currently ongoing behind closed doors. We'll be right back right here on Special Reports. Don't go anywhere. Well, coming to you live from Jakarta, Indonesia, you are still watching Special Reports here on TV Our World, where in the past hour and the next hour, we'll be covering the state visit of the President of Peru, Dina Boluarte, here in the capital, Jakarta. She is currently in a closed-door meeting, both entourages, with the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. Expected outcomes very, very soon.
Yes, and before we continue our dialogue with our guests in the studio, we're going to convey to you the brief profile of the President of Peru. Dina Boluarte is Peru's first female president. She assumed office on Wednesday, December 7, 2022, after Congress ousted former President Pedro Castillo. Let's take a look on Dina Boluarte's brief profile.
Dina Ercilia Boluarte Zigara, or Dina Boluarte, was born on May 31, 1962, in Chalhuanca, Peru. She is the youngest of 14 children in a rural family and grew up in Chalhuanca in the department of Apurimac, a mountainous region of southern Peru. Boluarte graduated in law from San Martin de Porres University in Lima, where she earned not only a law degree but also a master's degree in notary and registry law. She began her political career in 2007 at the National Registry of Identification and Civil Status in Surco as an advisor to senior management and later as a head of the local office. In 2018, Boluarte was a candidate for mayor of Surquillo with the Peru Libre Party. 2 years later, in 2020, she ran in extraordinary parliamentary elections but failed to win a seat. During the 2021 general elections, Boluarte was a candidate for vice presidency for the Peru Libre Party and Castillo's running mate. Although Castillo won the contest in a second round of voting, he found himself struggling for his political life. In December 2022, Castillo was removed from office and was detained on charges of rebellion after he stunned the country by ordering the dissolution of Congress. Boluarte assumed the presidency after the impeachment and arrest of then-President Pedro Castillo, with whom she had served as Vice President and Minister of Development and Social Inclusion. Like many Peruvian leaders that came before her, Dina Boluarte can be described as an accidental president. She was largely unknown in Peruvian politics before running as Castillo's running mate in 2021. Boluarte is the first female president in Peru's history and the 64th Peruvian president. Her term will extend through July 2026. She was once married, had 2 sons, and now divorced. Boluarte swore in her cabinet on December 10, 2022, and she asked each minister to pledge not to be corrupt while in office. Since her swearing in, Boluarte also has pledged to form a unity government focused on promoting an agenda of social inclusion and battling corruption.
And there you have it, the profile of the Peruvian president, Dina Boluarte. So she's the first female president in Peru. So Mbak Fifi, your thoughts on this? Do you think there's going to be a certain influence, by having this information as the first female president in Peru?
Yeah, I mean, if we took a look at the profile, it's quite interesting, the circumstances through which she became president. It's been a tough job for her actually, because she came in following the previous president's actions, and there was actually a strong need to unite the country.
We're going to have to hold you there, Mbak Fifi, as we look at the live visuals coming in from Merdeka Palace right now. We believe there is a meeting ongoing. We have no words from the palace whether or not it is a closed door meeting or not, but let's see if we can have audio from this meeting.
Yang begitu baik kepada diri saya dan rombongan saya. Kunjungan ini punya arti yang khusus karena besok adalah 50 tahun hubungan diplomatik antara Indonesia dan Peru. Saya sangat yakin bahwa kerjasama kita bisa kita tingkatkan karena kita punya kepentingan yang sama. Kita sama-sama ingin membangun kesejahteraan rakyat kita. Kita sama-sama bagian dari masyarakat dari Samudra Pasifik. Karena itu sekali lagi terima kasih atas kunjungan yang mulia.
Gracias, presidente Pravovio. Primero, agradecer en nombre propio, pero también de la delegación peruana y en nombre del pueblo peruano, la invitación que nos hiciera usted, presidente, en su visita en noviembre del año pasado, en la semana cumbre de la PEC 2024. Desde entonces, trabajamos a través de nuestros ministerios y nuestra Cancillería para que esta visita se haga una realidad. Y quisimos hacer coincidir, presidente, nuestra presencia, toda vez de que mañana, como usted ya bien lo ha manifestado, cumplimos 50 años de esa amistad entre dos pueblos hermanos, Indonesia y Perú, y en ese trabajo bilateral. Nuestra presencia obedece, presidente, para afianzar aún más nuestros lazos comerciales. Vamos a firmar dentro de un rato el CEPA para que al mercado de Indonesia ingrese nuestros arándanos, y está en proceso también el ingreso de la granada. Gracias, presidente, por esa voluntad suya, porque esto ha hecho de que se acorten los procesos y los trámites y ya podamos decir en el Perú que es una realidad que el arándano peruano va a estar en el mercado en Indonesia. Pero también, presidente, queríamos estar en este mes de agosto, toda vez de que este 17 de agosto ustedes cumplen 80 años de vuestra independencia, y saludarlos de manera presencial en este aniversario y brindar nuestros votos para que su gobierno, presidente, tenga los éxitos y los parabienes para la tranquilidad y el crecimiento económico y de desarrollo en todos los aspectos de su país. Gracias por esta invitación, gracias por la cálida acogida, presidente. Estaremos aún con agenda en lo que resta del día. Esta mañana ya estuvimos con los representantes de la Cámara de Comercio e Industria reunidos, en la que hemos podido pactar diversos temas de inversión que ellos tienen interés de invertir en mi país, sobre todo en infraestructura, y también que nuestros empresarios peruanos puedan venir a invertir a Indonesia. Gracias, presidente Prabowo. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih Yang Mulia. Dalam rangka efisiensi, kita gabungkan pertemuan bilateral dengan makan.
All right, we just had a glimpse of the initial meeting between President of Indonesia and the President of Peru, Dina Boluarte. We believe it was the cordial part of the meeting, Mbak Fifi, the part where they exchange pleasantries before they begin touching on some of the main substance of the meeting. President Prabowo, of course, expressing his gratitudes and appreciations, and he reiterated the fact that we share our goals of achieving common prosperity for the people. On behalf of President Boluarte, I know a few words. I hear gracias, presidente, which I know what it means. And she also said the words of trabajo, which means work. Probably we need to work together to achieve these goals. How's your Spanish, Ma Fifi?
It's okay. I think both of them put an emphasis on the 50th anniversary of the relations
That's a good
tomorrow.
number there.
My limited Spanish caught the trabajo part as the ministers have been working hard into finishing the SEPA draft.
Agreement,
And I do think that both highlights the importance of the future of the bilateral relations. Yeah.
Do you think that moving forwards, some of these things that have been put into the table since November 2024, the fact that Minister Budi Santoso has said that we need to focus on drug abuse, drug trafficking issues in both countries, we need to increase efforts, elevate efforts on peace and stability, and ramp up cooperations when it comes to culture, and of course, the very foundation of it all, economic and trade agreements. So the probability of us achieving a higher stature of cooperations with Peru at this point in time, per your analysis, share with us, please.
Definitely. I mean, we talked about this counter-narcotics cooperation, and I do think that it's something that it's an issue that is gaining more and more significance globally. And I think as many cooperation we could have on this particular issue, I think it's only going to improve the situation. Because Indonesia has been the destination for drug trafficking for quite some time. And we have had different types of cooperation in different platforms, on the ASEAN platform, of course, a lot, and the greater region as well. But I do think cooperation with Latin American countries is very important as well.
And for Peru, for them to have an affiliation with the biggest economy in Southeast Asia is of an utmost importance, we believe.
Of course. I mean, we've only been discussing from how we look at it from an Indonesian perspective.
From their sides to us.
Definitely, definitely.
That's the choice of Indonesia and Japan for the Asia visits by the presidents.
Definitely. So for them as well, I think Indonesia is a significant partner as well. We're looking to diversify our partnerships. They are doing the same thing as well. It's important for them to diversify their partnerships as well. So I think it's two countries needing to forge closer partnerships, which hopefully would be the basis for a better cooperation.
And also the fact that after mentioning the shared goals of achieving prosperity for both countries, President Prabowo mentioned the fact that, I said that earlier, that we share the borders with Pacific oceans. We are bordering in the same regions, which we need to achieve peace and stability. And the regions where a lot of these strong economies and rivalries around the world trying to assert their influence in China, the US. I asked this question to the former State Secretary of the U.S., Antony Blinken. I asked him about the U.S. policy on Indo-Pacific, especially for Indonesia, and he explains at length about that. And at this point in time, do you see that these countries coming together to sort of put a strong front together against all of these strange international influence trying to assert their strength and their grasp in the region?
Definitely. Although I'm not quite sure what Peru's strategy in the Pacific Islands is.
Yeah.
But in terms of geography, of course, the Pacific Islands is very important to them as well.
Yeah.
So for Indonesia, if we can also, as President Prabowo was saying earlier, if one of the partnerships that we can forge with Peru is with regards to the Pacific Islands, I think that is an improvement as well. Because Indonesia has been trying to grasp what we should do in terms of our relations with the Pacific Island countries. Sometimes successful, sometimes we're still grappling in terms of their policies there, especially with sensitive issues like Papua and so on. But then again, of course, as rightly mentioned, China is gaining bigger and bigger influence in the Pacific Islands, and that's something that we need to understand better as well. But Peru, interestingly, they actually have a free trade agreement with China. They have very close relations with China and very close partnerships with China, and they've been actually benefiting a lot from their free trade agreement with China.
Interesting fact that you mentioned there. So that because Indonesia is also trying to get more connection with China. So do you think this is one of the ways in order to strengthen that effort through Peru?
Probably a question of what was your last phone call with Xi Jinping?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't think that we are using our relationship with Peru directly or directly to forge closer relations with China. But I do think that Indonesia should look into some of the countries that are benefiting in terms of their relations with China, and if we could, try to learn something from it and have a better cooperation with China as well, especially in terms of our trade and investment. I think that's something that needs to be worked on as well.
Right. But Fifi, you are an expert at this because we mentioned that we are looking forward to the final draft, what is going to be announced and what it entails when it comes to Indonesia, Peru or IPCPA, but we've had that July this year with the IEU, Indonesia EU CIPA. We have the IUAE, the Indonesia UAE CIPA. We have the Australia Indonesia CIPA, and a lot of other comprehensive economic partnership agreements around the globe. From all of these agreements that you've assessed thus far, how much of those agreements benefited Indonesia, and the way we look forward in terms of fostering this sort of agreements with other countries around the globe?
With the CIPAs,
and the RCEP too. You discussed that at length as well. Yeah.
With this, all these different CIPAs, of course, the completion of it is very significant. It like I said, it goes far beyond. First, maybe it's symbolical, but then, we are trying to gain as much benefit from it as possible. But then the next challenge, and I think the more important one, is actually how to implement it. It's useless to have, for example, like zero tariff on a certain product when you can't follow it up with actually exporting these products to that country. So, of course, you can assess it by what is agreed upon in the CEPA, but I think more importantly, how you follow up from there and actually implement some of the points that has been agreed upon. Yeah.
All right, interesting facts there, but we are going to continue our dialogue later on after this break. Don't go away, please stay with us on the special report on Peru President's state visit. Welcome back on our special report. With me, Valerina Daniel, and my partner here, Rahmat Idris. And we are going to continue our topic today about the Peruvian president's visit to Indonesia.
Yeah, and we've been talking about it back and forth about the participations of President Prabowo last year in the APEC Peru. Well, President Prabowo on the APEC CEO summit held in Peru last year said he was confident global powers, including those who are in disputes in the Indo-Pacific region, will be able to set differences aside and push for free, fair, and sustainable trade.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to be invited to address this distinguished body. As we all know, that peace and prosperity is driven by economic activity, by the role of the business community, the role of entrepreneurs, the role of industry. Without the dynamic participation of the economic sector, basically we cannot have growth and prosperity. Without growth, we cannot alleviate poverty. We cannot create relevant employment. Therefore, I am very happy and very honored to address you, the drivers of economic growth in the Pacific region. The Pacific region, I think, is one of the most dynamic areas of the world. Economic growth, potential technological achievements, the demographics, the resources available in the Pacific and the Indo-Pacific regions all point to a bright economic future for all. We have at the present geopolitical tension, but I am an optimist in the interests of humanity. I believe that the leaders of the great powers of the world, in the final analysis, will always opt for the common good. Rivalry is historical. There will always be rivalry. But our planet has become smaller. We are now in a planet full of technological breakthroughs. The tremendous breakthroughs in technology demands that leaders be more wise, be more patient, be more accommodating, because the power of technology can bring significant progress to human life. But the power of technology can also destroy human life very fast. Therefore, I always choose the path of collaboration, engagement, communication, negotiation. Yes, we have to uphold and live by common laws, by international rules, but we must also have common understanding of everybody's interests. I come from a country now, Indonesia, one of the largest countries in the world, fourth largest population. Our territory from west to east is nearly the length of Europe. Europe has 27 countries or more. We are one country. We have our significant challenges, but we are blessed with abundant resources, significant territory, land and water. We have the fortune of being able to, in a few years, be completely self-sufficient in energy, self-sufficient in green energy. We will be perhaps one of the few countries that can achieve 100% renewable energy within a few years. We can replace fossil fuel by renewables. We have the largest geothermal potential. I think 60% of the world geothermal energy potential is in Indonesia. We have a potential, of course, solar energy, but our main strength will come from bioenergy, from the plant-based fuel that we can produce. We will be, I think, together with Brazil and maybe with the Congo DRC, we have the potential to produce fuel from plants, and this, I think, will create a lot of opportunities because we will save a lot on foreign exchange. The funds will circulate within our own economy. We also are blessed with critical minerals and other vital resources for modern life. And also I've been discussing with Peru, the Peruvian government. I think we have complementary resources for the future. We have managed to have a prudent economical and fiscal policies in the last years. We managed to maintain growth even after the COVID. Our growth now is about 5%, higher than the global average. Our inflation is at 2%. We have challenges. We still have, I would say, we still have poverty at a large scale, large level, which I'm determined to bring down. And we do have a significant percentage of our children malnourished. I'm also determined to address these problems head on. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a firm believer in the role of private business. Before I entered government, I was also a businessman, an entrepreneur, so I do understand from both sides the concerns, the challenges faced by private business. I think private business wants a certainty of the legal system. Private business wants favorable economic climate, political climate, stability, security, and good conditions, favorable incentives, and this we are addressing. We have liberalized our laws. We open the health sector for foreign health companies. We are opening our education sector. We invite foreign universities to open campuses. We are inviting foreign hospitals to open their branches in Indonesia. We are going forward with more incentives. We have created several special economic zones, and we will create more of these special economic zones in order to invite the modern and advanced leading-edge technology, especially as the traditional economy. For instance, we are very bullish on our maritime industry, fisheries. I think we are now 3/4 of our national territory is water. We have tremendous potential for, let us say, a well-planned fishery program, aqua farming, and a lot of processing industries. We are determined to industrialize by downstreaming our resources, processing our resources. We have 26 commodities which we are determined to have a processing industry. We calculate that we need investment of around $600 billion, and we invite foreign participants to come in and take part in this. And many of the companies have been involved in our economy for many, many years. We are also pushing for more exploration of oil and gas and other minerals. So, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is open for more business. I'm determined to protect all investments, to give favorable economic conditions, and to be involved in the major economic organizations of the world, and to work together with all of you to create mutual prosperity. I believe that prosperity can only come from peace. Peace comes from understanding. Understanding comes from engagement and negotiation. So I'm very happy to attend this APEC summit, to renew contacts, to introduce myself, to introduce my country, and to invite cooperation between all of you, the private sector of the Pacific Basin, the Pacific world, and together to achieve prosperity. Prosperity, in the end, I would say, guarantees peace and stability. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that concludes my remarks. And once again, thank you for inviting me, and I wish this APEC summit, this APEC CEO summit also to be very successful. Thank you very much.
And there you have it. We've just heard President Prabowo's speech at APEC CEO Summit 2024 in Peru, where he conveyed his planning in regard to the APEC's cooperations in the future.
Yeah.
So
inviting in investments. He said that 26 potential commodities from Indonesia requiring $600 billion US. So come to our country, invest. We need to achieve the elusive 8% growth that he needs, that he wants, that he's been championing.
So basically, Indonesia is open for business. That's what
Open
he
for
said.
business, indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so Mbak Fifi, your thoughts on that speech?
Yeah, I think the main message was that in terms of a multilateral cooperation like APEC, I think President Prabowo's message is he wants, Indonesia seeks for like an open and fair trade for all countries, especially the members of APEC. And I think he was giving assurance, of course, that Indonesia supports this free and open trade, and therefore Indonesia's, he said he would protect investment coming into Indonesia and invites for more investment. And I do think that is the essence of a multilateral framework like APEC, that you want to promote this type of cooperation.
And when it comes to the currently ongoing closed-door meeting with President Dina of Peru, do you think that this will play into account inviting investments from different sources, diversifications, including Peru at this point in time?
Well, I do think for the bilateral relations, what is the most significant is the bilateral part of the cooperation, of course, how Peru wants to enter Indonesia's market, and Indonesia wants
Vice
to,
versa,
and
yeah.
vice versa. We talked about how we view Peru as a gateway towards Latin America, and I do think that Peru also sees Indonesia as a gateway to Southeast Asia or even the greater East Asia. As a whole. So, and it's both the interest of the both leaders to actually promote this open trade, openness and fair trade, investment flowing in to both countries, and I think that should be high on the priority.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically what President Prabowo said during his speech, not necessarily will be implemented in the CEPA between Indonesia and Peru, correct?
Yeah, because that was at the APEC CEO
and
summit.
that's even CEO summit.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. So of course, what the issues that he focused on. Of course, you can find similarities in terms of our CEPA with Peru, but I think he was speaking mostly on the platform of APEC.
Right.
Yeah.
So what, at this point in time, what are you looking forward to the most when it comes to Indonesia and Peru relations and its golden year? 50 is golden, right? Which bears to thinking and to remind ourselves the importance of establishing and fostering relations with other different nations. And this time, Peru is in the picture.
Well, I look forward to the announcement later on with regards to the CEPA.
Yeah. Which unfortunately we will not be able to cover at this point because per previous experiences, it's always stretched out. It takes a very long time for them to come to conclusions of these meetings.
So yeah, let's look forward to that. Let's look forward into looking at the details of what the CEPA entails. And hopefully this is the start, well, this is the second with Latin America, so let's hope this is the second of many more to come with regards to our closer cooperation with that part of the world. A lot of potentials to be tapped on, definitely.
Yeah. Yep, including maybe about farming, because we saw on
agricultural
the screen,
countries,
on the screen previously that the Minister of Farm Minister from Indonesia is also attending the meeting, the bilateral meeting. So
The Minister of
so-
Agriculture of Indonesia was there.
Yeah, and then
We
so-
believe representing a certain.
Probably, yeah.
Agriculture is also part of the big issues in the CEPA, correct?
Should be, yes. I think Indonesia exports quite a lot of commodities like rubber and some of the agriculture products. It's not high on in terms of, if you look at the percentage of our exports to, it's one of them. But of course, I do think that they look to improve the cooperation in that part as well. Yeah.
Right. We've almost come to the end of our conversations, Mbak Fifi, and if you could just put it all together into perspective for us at the end of these conversations, the way we need to, because this is also what President Prabowo has been saying over and over again, we need to establish a stronger presence, a more prominent presence of Indonesia at a global community, global stage. And this is one of his ways to do so, inviting global leaders coming to our countries, strengthening ties amidst all of these calamities, geopolitical tensions. And this is something that Indonesia continues to pursue. So moving forward, how do you see this will play into what Indonesia is trying to achieve per the agenda of President Prabowo?
Sure. I mean, looking at the bigger picture, of course, a lot of certainties in terms of geopolitics. Indonesia needs to be, of course, every country needs to be clever in terms of how you manage, how you navigate in these times of uncertainty globally at the moment. So, and I do think, fostering bilateral relations with as many countries as possible is the way to go. While at the same time, in parallel, you also you should be more active in terms of our multilateral engagements as well. So all channels, all avenues need to be promoted, and one way to go is this, of course.
And why do you think Peru is such a significant gateway to the Southern Hemisphere, South America particularly, because it reaches not only the South, but also Central America, where one of the biggest nations, Mexico, is right there for us to establish these ties?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's unfair to say that it's not the only gateway. Of course, we foster close relations with Mexico, we foster close relations with Brazil, and all of these different countries in Latin America, I think needs to a lot of potentials that is to be untapped, definitely.
All right, so So your final thoughts then? What should we be looking
Well,
forward?
final thoughts, of course. I personally look forward to the SEPA, to reading into it, read from it, and maybe do a little bit of comparison in terms of our SEPA with different countries. Of course, the one with Chile that was signed in 2019, I think is, of course, a good comparison to see how we view our relations.
We need to figure that out because based on that Chile, Indonesia, Chile, SEPA, we can really see the global pictures of how we establish these affairs with South American countries.
Yes,
right?
definitely. So I personally look forward to doing that.
And on that note, the tete-a-tete, the bilateral meeting is still ongoing behind closed doors. We don't know what's happening right there, but it's always very, very outstretched at this point with all of these global leaders attending meetings with President Prabowo Subianto, and we'll be airing the outcomes, the results of these meetings, the deliverables through the different platforms right here on TV Our World, our bulletins throughout the day. And in the meantime, I'd like to express our gratitude. Thank you very much, Deputy Executive Director for Research of CSIS, Safia F. Mohibat. Mafifi, always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the time.
And that's all the time we have today for special report for Peruvian President's state visit to Indonesia. I am Valerina Daniel.
And I'm Rahmat Idris from Jakarta, Indonesia. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.